We've been told stoves are bad for us. We've been told that gardens are bad for us. Growing your own garden is horrible for you. Now it's cats. Cats are apparently horrible. And they want to kill us.
Flight crew, please prepare for takeoff.
Minute till self-destruction.
Hey, this is Nikki, and welcome to the Off-Grid Style Podcast. So today we're going to be discussing all of these things. Gas stoves, and are they truly bad for you? Gardens, is it true that they're trying to stop you from growing your own gardens in your backyard or wherever it might be? And also this whole new thing that I haven't heard a whole lot about yet, but I've read a lot of articles on, that cats are bad for us and they're out to kill us. Literally, that's pretty much what this article study says. So I'll probably find something else to talk about while I'm here because it's a podcast and I get to babble on. I will try to keep it to a minimum. It is important to stay up to date on the latest scheme that supposedly is supposed to protect the environment. It's supposed to protect us, and how caring our government is about protecting us from this scary world that we live in that's out to get us. Like ovens. Ovens are scary and they're out to get us. Gardens and cats also are out to get us. Or homegrown tomatoes. Whatever. What is the truth about all this? That's my question. And what are the other side of this declaration that people make about this ovens or the cats or the gardens? What's the other side of this story? Because there's always at least two. I always say there's three sides to a story. That is his or hers, mine or whoever the other person is, and the truth. Because everybody sees things from their own point of view and from their own experiences and past and what judgments they have formed and all the rest of it. So there's always a third side to every story, and that third side is typically somewhere in between the two other sides. It's kind of in the middle. And so I try to give you the other side of the story and the middle ground of the story. So that is what we're here to do. Let's find out all about all this stuff. So our first topic of the day is the scary as hell gas stoves that are out to kill everybody after decades of having them in your home. It's unbelievable that they came out with this, but whatever. Hey, kudos to them for wanting to put something forward. A lot of research related to how bad gas stoves are for your health and the environment was done, shockingly, I know, in California. They do have the most gas-powered stoves in the country, according to a study that didn't really have any sightings behind it. It just made that claim as part of the study that was the reason why they were looking into California. So not much I can do about that. I could not find this information on my own anywhere. The highly publicized studies that they have used, and by they, I mean those that are promoting us getting rid of our gas stoves, the highly publicized studies that showed these death machines that leak benzene, and that's carcinogen, and methane, even when they're turned off. Okay. All right. Well, that sounds pretty freaking scary. I can see where that would be a concern. Yes, 100%. It's interesting because I just went and had to pay my propane bill for the year. We don't use a lot of propane up at the cabin, but I do have to pay for the tank that we use. And so I went online to go pay the bill, and they have a new setup, and I went to pay it, and they asked me what I used my propane for. And I'm like, well, that's none of your business. You don't need to know what I use it for. It's not your business. But they wanted you to select what all you used it for, including your gas stoves, including, water heaters, fireplaces, other things, the grills. That was the word I was looking for. All of those things. And I was thinking, this is none of your business. And so I just selected other. and left it at that. And they wanted me to fill out what the other was. And I was going to make some smart ass remark, but I didn't. I just left it at other and went on about my way, which I was proud about. But I thought, why are you even asking me? You haven't asked me all these other years. Why does it suddenly make a difference to you now? I'm not telling you what I use it for. It's not your business. And you're damn sure not coming to my place and taking it from me. So just a little aside there. So the next time, if you do have gas-powered items and you do pay it online and they do ask you what you use it for, don't tell them. It's not their business, and it's one more way for them to track you. Not that I'm being paranoid, because believe me, somebody somewhere is collating all that data. Just FYI. In 2019, well before this whole thing became a public outcry, Berkeley banned gas stoves in most new homes and in most new building construction to reduce carbon emissions. Since then, over 50 other California cities and counties have enacted similar bans. So this happened way prior to all of the hoopla over this came out last year. And let's not stop there. In September of 2022, the California Air Resources Board unanimously approved a proposal to ban all gas furnaces, gas furnaces and gas water heaters as of 2030. Now, it hasn't actually passed the state yet. It does have a few more hoops to jump through, but that is their goal, is that all of these natural gas using products will be banned by 2030. Okay, interesting. The electric companies, I'm sure, are loving that. The electric appliance companies are loving that. It's interesting because 42% of California's electricity generation comes from natural gas. Okay, that does not make any sense, but whatever. It's California. You got to expect things that not make sense. So I guess it's okay for you to have your energy produced by natural gas. Just don't have it in your home. And I would think that the emissions from the natural gas being produced to power electricity would be a hell of a lot stronger with the benzene and the methane than anything you would have in your home with it turned off or even turned on. But again, I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not a person who studies these things for a living. I just have common sense, and apparently that is valuable these days. So, interesting. So, does all this research that has been done really equate to scaring everyone into believing their gas stoves gave their kids asthma or gave their in-laws COPD or whatever it is all they're claiming? I know about the asthma part. No. Needless to say, the asthma, which is what the main claim is, that it's being given to your children by your gas stove, because, your gas stove is evil. Asthma has been around for literally centuries. Mentions of it can be found in medical texts going back to ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome. It's essentially an airway inflammation and a constriction. And there are lots of things that can exacerbate it, like pollen, allergens, pollutants like, smog, which is all over California. So all of these studies that were done in California was the fact that people live in the worst air quality in the country ever factored in. Didn't read that anywhere in the studies. Read that nowhere in the studies. Here's a little bit of information from the American Lung Association. California has by far the worst air quality of any state in the United States. 7 of the top 10 cities for ozone are in California. 6 of the 10 top cities for year-round particulate pollution are in California. And 8 out of the top 10 cities for short-term particulate pollution are in California. So by all means, let's do breathing studies in this state. That makes a lot of sense. Nothing to see here. It must be the gas stove because nothing else could be causing our kids to cough their lungs out on a regular basis. Besides, when they actually walk outside or every time you open a door and here comes more crap into your home because your air quality is so horrid that people can't even go outside on a regular basis. So, just a little context and reference here. Gas stoves were patented in 1826 by a guy. And in the 1920s, by the 1920s, most homes cooked with gas stoves. Electric stoves were considered an absolute novelty at that point in time in the 1920s, since they'd only been patented in 1896, and very few homes had them. So the entirety of research, decades worth, that had studied cooking with gas shows that it is safe and doesn't have any significant effect on indoor air quality or health issues. The California Restaurant Association and the California Building Industry Association, because both of these would be extremely affected by all of these bans on all of these different gas things. The Restaurant Association in particular, because any self-respecting chef cooks with gas. And it is far cheaper in the long run for them than cooking with electric, and your food just comes out better, is what they say. They decided to fund an independent study. So had all these scientists study every single indoor air quality study and government assessment that had ever been done on gas stoves in the home. All of this research, studying, and government work shows that what type of stove you cook on doesn't make much of a difference at all. What does make a difference is what you're cooking and how you cook it. So depending on what food type you use or you're cooking, if you cook with oil, and then what kind of oil you cook with, your cooking time and your temperature. So if I put something on the stove and cook it for 4 hours, I'm going to emit a whole lot more benzene and methane than if I'm boiling eggs for, 20 minutes. And that ventilation, very simple ventilation, is a practical, easy way to deal with any small concerns there might be from cooking gas or electric, either way. And that's why you have to have that little thing on top of a gas stove, the hood with the vent, because that sucks up both anything from the cooking itself, but also the methane and the benzene when you're cooking. Researchers have also found consistently that long-term concentrations of air emissions in real-life cooking are well below any established health risk thresholds. And this is the best and most important part. The International Study of Asthma and Allergies in Childhood. This was a worldwide investigation that looked at the potential risk between gas stoves and asthma. Over 500,000 school kids aged, 6 to 15 or so, I believe it was, from 47 countries were studied. The study found there was no link between the use of gas stoves and any significant additional asthma symptoms or diagnosis. They found no difference. But apparently that study wasn't good enough for California or the government. They completely ignored it. And even though it was presented to them as a argument against these bans they're trying to put in place, it was ignored. One of the studies they did use to have everybody wig out about gas stoves and how they're killing us and all that good stuff was one that suggested indoor air quality levels are often 2 to 5 times and often sometimes more than 100 times worse than outdoor air quality levels. This was based on a 1987 study. They didn't discuss anything about cooking or about gas or about electric, just the general indoor air quality. And back in 1987, it wasn't 70% of homes had gas stoves in California. It was a lot lower than that. Here's another wonderful study that was used to prove how horrible gas stoves were. Stanford University was measuring methane and other emission concentrations from gas stoves to prove that greenhouse gases cause air emission. Okay. Since the study had nothing to do with health effects, they closed the test kitchens entirely in plastic. No ventilation, turned on the gas. So in other words, they wrapped all of these test kitchens in this big, huge place that they did the study at in sheets of plastic to seal them in so that they could effectively measure the gas emissions that were coming out when they turned on the stoves. But typically in any home environment, or especially in a commercial environment, you've got tons of ventilation going on. You got windows, you got doors, you got all those things. And this was not about cooking or utilizing the gas stove for cooking. This was about testing the gas for emissions. Well, we know that gas has emissions. I mean, that's pretty darn obvious. So needless to say, the results were definitely skewed towards their intended goal of proving natural gas is bad. And the study is just one of the ones the so-called experts are using to prove that we have to get rid of gas stoves. Yet another study in 70 homes, 70. Now, I just told you about a study of 500,000 kids, but 70 homes in California built between 2011 and 2017 was designed to study gas stove emissions. All nitrogen dioxide emission concentrations during normal gas stove cooking, including using a range hood ventilation system, so using a range hood, were well below the danger line that the EPA considers safe for health. So in the same state, same test, proved that everything was safe and fine and dandy. So all of these studies have been done, and all of this was collated together by this group of scientists that the Restaurant and Building Associations of California paid for independently. But it's all being ignored, all of it. They looked at every single study ever done on gas stove safety, and it's all been ignored. So there's obviously another agenda here besides gas stoves are not safe for you. What could that agenda possibly be? What does California and the Mumblers administration stand to gain from scaring the public into believing that their gas appliances are going to kill them? Well, in 2023, the Renewable Energy Lobbying Group spent $57 million on donations to people who were running for office. Of the entirety of lobbyists in this group, 62% are former government employees. In 2020, during that election year, 76% of donations made by this lobbying group as a whole went to Democrats, with the Mumbler getting the largest share. This information that I just gave you comes from a website called opensecrets.com. It's a really cool site that collates all the donations, who makes them, where they go, and all that stuff. So what's going on here? There's got to be some agenda. We're not realizing, noticing, whatever the case might be, why they're pushing renewable energy sources on us, telling us gas stoves are horrible for us when there's studies out there that prove that they're not. And the studies that they use to form this opinion are old, outdated, or had nothing to do with cooking as a reason to get rid of your gas stove. So, and why did the Renewable Energy Lobbying Group kick so much into Democratic elections? Another question for you. It was something like, I don't know, 20 some percent went to Republicans of all of the money that they donated out. So something's going on here. So before you, and I know most of you are of the type who don't just believe what you hear and don't just believe what you read, look into things. And I know most of you do. It's very, very interesting why this went on the way it did and why they are ignoring the truth. Before I move on, I do want to let you know that I'm always interested in hearing about things you want me to cover. So if you hear of something that you're like, that doesn't sound quite right, and you want to have it looked into a little bit more, I'm always looking for more information. You guys know that. And I'm happy to go down rabbit holes to find it. So you can always email me. It's offgridstylefl@gmail.com. And so offgridstylefl as in Florida @gmail.com, and I will happily look into it for you. So now let's look at how horrible growing our own food is, because it's really awful that we would want to do that. Once again, I'm sure you're going to figure out what I'm going to tell you. So in news coverage of this, it was made to sound as if we were killing the planet by growing our own food. In other words, that we were producing more carbon than it was worth for us to grow our own food, as opposed to all the commercially grown food that's out there. And to a certain degree, they're correct. In other words, if you think about it, if I'm growing vegetables in my own little plot, obviously I'm not going to be as efficient as big, huge commercial grower is going to be. But I also don't have to worry about any government entity coming in and telling me, you know what, we don't want you to grow that food anymore, which is what has happened, of course, with some commercial growers around the world. So I get that part of it, that I'm not being as productive as growing my food commercially or growing food commercially is. Get that. I'm not in business to grow food. I'm in business to feed myself. So that's part of it. But all of us who are SHTF minded, if you will, or suspicious in any way, you don't necessarily have to be a prepper to think about it this way, but we're like, okay, here we go. Now they're going to regulate our gardens. Now they're going to take our food away from us. Well, no, they're really not. And they're not tracking us either as far as our growing food in our gardens is concerned. I can't attest to any other ways, but they're not tracking us as far as growing food in our own gardens is concerned. No one heard the actual reasons behind the statement that was made that growing your own vegetables was bad for you. And I dug into it and found that the study never said that growing food was bad. As a matter of fact, you will find tons and tons and tons of articles and studies that say growing your own food is actually healthier for you and healthier for you as far as what you're ingesting, because you're not using all of those chemicals that they use in commercial growing. Even organic growing, I found out, is not so organic. It focused on how people grow food, the study did. Pesticides, fertilizers, mulch, and other commercial products that most gardeners use, even down to the compost that most gardeners use if they're composting for themselves. The study also cited the materials that the gardens are built with and suggested that using reclaimed or recycled supplies to build raised beds or compost bins and even sheds would be a much better option as far as carbon footprint was concerned. In actuality, home gardens are predominantly good for the environment from what other studies have shown. And those who grow their own food tend to waste less of it. That's another interesting thing, because I don't know if you realize, but roughly 20% of produce is wasted in the process from going from the commercial grower to the grocery store and then into your fridge. In that whole section, 20% is wasted once you bring it home and put it in your fridge, because you throw it out. And it creates a whole lot of nasty stuff when it ends up in the landfill and starts decomposing. And that is a major concern to them. But people who grow their own food tend to not waste as much. So as for the gardens now being tracked, is it really happening? Well, kind of, but no. Let me explain what is actually going on. So a USDA program that has actually been around for a while, many years now, is getting a new push from the government as part of this whole agenda to create more streamlined and productive gardening. The name of it is awful. It's called the People's Garden Initiative, which to me sounds like I might be in mainland China, but that's just me. Like an indoctrination on how to grow food or something, or you'll get beaten if you don't grow enough or that kind of thing. It's the People's Initiative. But here is what the official word is on how this program works. You can register your garden for free with this program to, I'm going to quote, foster a more diverse and resilient local food system to empower communities to address issues like nutritional access and effects from the climate. Diverse and resilient. Don't those sound like buzzwords? Yes, yes, they are. So now our gardens apparently need inclusion and equity help. Our gardens are not good enough. Here's the thing, but not every garden is eligible. You growing, tomatoes and celery and lettuce and whatever in your backyard doesn't count. And they don't want you to register. They're going to tell you, no, you don't qualify. If you're growing veggies in your backyard, you have nothing to worry about, at least on this point. It has to be some type of community, like an after-school garden, urban farms, small-scale farming projects. You have to benefit the community, incorporate conservation practices, and educate the public. You got to do those things to be part of this. So for everybody that ran to their YouTube channels or their Facebook page or whatever their social media is that they have followers on and screamed about how the government now wants to track who is growing their own food, that is completely not true. I mean, they may want to, don't get me wrong, but that is not what this is about. This is about larger parcels of land and more community type situations and efforts. And you can actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you get help from the USDA if you have one of these types of gardens, a school garden, anything where you teach people about best practices for growing food. You can get help from the USDA for doing that. So would I register even if I did qualify? No, because in the back of my head, I see some type of regional type emergency happening, an SHTF type emergency, possibly, like I said, regionally. And suddenly I have a whole lot of people in the government that know I have this type of garden, and they show up one day and they confiscate all of my produce that my local community and I have grown together to sustain us and to, we work together to do this. It's just my opinion. I don't have proof of that portion of it, but I would not personally register. Like I said, for those of you who do have a type of garden that applies, that's up to you. I would definitely look into it and read it and make your own choices. I always encourage that. Whatever your choice may be, it is still allowed in this country, mostly. So you do you, and you decide what's best for you. That's my opinion on it. All right, so let's get to the just unbelievable part of this podcast. This just cracks me up. And I haven't heard a whole lot about it yet, which I also found interesting. Maybe because it's cats, I don't know. And it's not gas stoves or your vegetable garden. But this is very, very funny but sad at the same time. According to studies, most notably by the UK's University of Lincoln, it's still an ongoing study, but it was on the BBC as a TV special. Cats are selfish, unfeeling, and environmentally harmful. Yes. So there is an animal that is environmentally harmful. It is your cat. Yeah, get rid of your cat. That's it. I don't know where they come up with this stuff. Y'all cat lovers in California better hope your state government doesn't hear about this because, yeah, you'll be getting rid of your cat. So how do they determine this? How did they determine this? Where did they come up with this one at? There's a lot of different information in here, and it's weird. I mean, it's super weird. First, they did an experiment that is typically done with human children, and it's called like the stranger experiment or something along those lines. And basically, it's in the case of the cats, it's the owner or the ownee, if you will, because usually cats own their people. But in the case of parents and kids, the parent leaves the room. And when the parent comes back in, you look to see if there's any reaction from the child for the parent coming back in. Okay. So they did this with cats and dogs. Well, we all know what the dogs did. The dogs have no clue. So the owner walked out of the room, came back in 5 minutes later, and the dog acted like he hadn't seen the owner in 7 months. Okay. We all know what the cat did. The cat probably didn't even look at the owner. If he or she did look at the owner, then they just went, oh, okay, hey, what's going on? And turned around and did whatever it was that they were doing before. So this is their evidence that cats don't care about their people. All right. I'm pretty sure I could have saved them a whole lot of time and money by letting them know up front what exactly a cat would do if you did this to them, because that's what cats do. They deal with you on their time. And actually, I kind of like that because I feel the same way sometimes about people. I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to have to deal with them. No, I just don't feel like dealing with them today. I'll text them later. You know, we all have those moments. Well, cats are the same way. Dogs, on the other hand, tend to be much more emotionally needy, I think is a good way to put it. And I love dogs. Don't get me wrong. I've had them my whole entire life. I've only had cats for probably half of my life. So I've had much more time spent with dogs than cats. But cats just, they're going to care when they're going to bother, I should say, when they want to bother. And when they're doing something else, or they're tired, or they're sleeping, or they're grumpy, because they do get moody, they're going to just do themselves and just hang out, and they see you're there. They know you're there. And, okay, great, you're here. I'm glad you're here, but I ain't going to jump up and down and pant all over you like a dog would. So this is just amazing that this is the stuff that gets researched. You know, we've got cancer killing people every single day, but let's determine that cats are unemotional and don't care for you. Let's spend money on that. Oh, Bumbleclot. Okay. So, oops, I just cussed in Jamaican. Sorry. All right. So here's some more research to prove that cats are psycho killers who want to eat us if we ever stayed still long enough. A pair of Japanese researchers have confirmed that cats can hear you and they don't care. Okay, again, they could have taken all that money that they spent to determine this and given it to me, and I could have told them that without any research needing to be done. I know my cats hear me, and they both know their names. I know they both know their names. I know they hear me. That's what cats do. That is part of sort of the irritating charm of cats, is that you know they hear you, but if they want to do something else, they're going to ignore you. That's just a fact of life. So here's the deal. Dogs were domesticated by man. So, you know, I guess the wolves, if you will, or the precursor to wolves, or whatever it was 15,000 years ago, because that's when it happened. They figured out that they could, you know, tame, if you will, these animals and use them for herding and for guarding and things like that. And so that was about 15,000 years ago that happened. Cats, about 9,000 years ago, give or take, they figured that cats figured out that those weird two-legged creatures have food. And if I act really, really cute and, you know, roll around on my back and squish my eyes at the person, they're going to think I'm adorable and they're going to give me food. On top of that, They also figured out that those two-legged people have a whole bunch of food in places they're storing it, and the rats come to eat that food because that's how it was back then. So they started hanging out with people because they knew that where there were people, there was food, and where there was food, there was rats. Gee, I wonder why. So cats actually domesticated themselves. They decided on their terms that they were going to come hang out with humans. So researchers, again, I'm dead serious. I want to know how much these people get paid. Have determined that your cat is not showing you affection when it rubs against you, comes up and boops you with its nose or pats you with its paw, or does the bread kneading thing on you, or curls up next to you when there's a bad storm outside. Nope. These vicious, psycho animals have different goals because they're so advanced in their thinking that they can come up with diabolical plans that, take weeks, months, years to put into place because they're just that smart and that evil. Oh my God. Okay. Cats rub up against you, not because of affection, and do all those other things, not because of affection, but because they're marking their territory. They view you as part of their territory and they own you. But yeah, that is how a cat would think. I 100% agree with that and knew that already. That's why they rub up against you. But they also rub up against you because they want food. And the cat also thinks that anything that's mine is also theirs. That is also true. There's a whole big boundary issue when you have a cat or cats. Back to life. So the researchers reason that this rubbing is because semi-feral cats that these researchers observed would rub up against trees and other objects to let other cats know this is their territory. And then your domesticated, couldn't survive 3 minutes outside cat is doing the same thing. Seriously, how much do these people get paid? I need to become a cat researcher. In a study at the University of Sussex in England, they recorded the purring sounds made by 10 different cats when they wanted food and when they didn't. So they studied a whopping 10 cats. 10. Don't know where the cats are from, don't know anything about the cats, but they studied them. Supposedly, the frequency of the purring, the megahertz of the purring when they wanted food was somehow similar to a baby's cry. And the humans that were in the study said these food-related purrs felt more urgent. I have never had a cat that purred when it was hungry, ever. I've had them scream. I've had them try to kill me and trip me and, knock me over and claw me and climb up me. I have never had a cat purr at me when it was hungry. I do not know what these cats were. Perhaps English cats do that. I don't know. But I also want to know who these people were that were in the study that stated that their food-related purrs felt more urgent. I'm telling you, I can't make this up. So going back to the baby crying purring sound, the researchers determined that the cats had figured out that this works to get them food. And they don't always purr this way, only when they're hungry. Now we come to petting cats. This is even more fun. Another study, once again, I want to get into being able to do these studies so I can get paid this money, measured the levels of stress hormones in cats. Those that allowed themselves to be petted had higher stress levels afterwards than the cats who ran away when someone tried to pet them. So my first question and my main question was, did anyone ever consider that some type of human had to come up to them and test their baseline stress levels? That probably was invasive in some way. And then they tested them after another two-legged creature that the cat didn't know tried to pet it. So, of course, this cat had higher stress levels than, say, my 18-pound, behemoth who lays on his back all day and wants his belly rubbed. Of course, they had higher stress levels. I would be a little anxious too if I knew that people were going to poke and prod me and then poke and prod me again after I was petted. It's kind of a Pavlov's dog thing. If I know I'm going to get petted and then poked, then I'm probably going to be a little anxious about being petted, I would think. So now, cats are bad for the environment as well because they kill birds. So this study is going to shock and amaze you. In the U.S., cats are an invasive species. They originally came from Asia. I don't know why they're not an invasive species in Asia because they multiply the same in Asia as they do here, but maybe because we don't eat them. I don't know. I don't know who eats them and who doesn't. I don't. And I'm not trying to suggest that Asian people eat them and we don't. I don't know, but I just had that thought. I don't want to offend anybody. Anyway, research shows, and I don't want you to be shocked. I hope you're sitting down. I really do. When cats are let out, according to researchers, they kill birds. They try to kill birds and anything else that moves. I know. You're just speechless right now. Had no idea this occurred. But yes, cats are predators. And when they go out, if they're let out or if they're outdoor animals, they try to kill other animals. It boggles the mind. I know. And they got paid for this too. So, the study was criticized for the methods that were involved in discovering that animals kill birds by other researchers, peers of these scientists. Says that cats kill somewhere between 1.4 billion and 3.7 billion birds and somewhere between 7 and 20 billion mammals annually. All the cats. Now, they didn't say where, when, how. They didn't say the whole world. They didn't say U.S. They didn't say Western world. Nothing like that. They just gave up these numbers, which is probably one of the reasons why they were criticized by other researchers. So cats kill the birds. I'm so sorry to have to break this one to you. The Fish and Wildlife Service, it's our money at work, says that cats kill as many birds as birds flying into cell phone towers, power lines, cars, wind turbines, planes, all of those things combined. Don't know again how they came up with that, but they did. Once again, these researchers suggest tying a bell on the cat's neck or keeping it inside at night to help cut down on the bird killing. Well, y'all are burning and killing our chickens all the time, so I don't see why that makes much of a difference. Oops, did I actually say that? I did. Sorry. Truth. Since my cats are indoor only, this isn't an issue. I've always kept my cats indoors. They do, I will say, and I appreciate this, living in Florida, we have these gargantuanly huge cockroaches called, for some reason, palmetto bugs. And they do enjoy one of those on the half shell every once in a while when they do find them, which you're going to have them once in a while in Florida. You can't help it. They will leave me the legs. And I'm like, all right, something happened. Something went on last night. So that's just one of those things you deal with. And I'm glad that they catch them because I don't want to deal with them. So I appreciate that. And finally, your cat may be driving you crazy. And I did not make this up. This is an actual study. Once again, your cat may be driving you crazy. There is supposedly a connection between cats and a parasite called Toxoplasma gondii and litter boxes. This parasite can live in a lot of mammals, but magically it can only reproduce in the intestines of cats. Well, aren't they glad that we have cats? Because otherwise these things would have gone into extinction millions of years ago. They would have never actually been because, they didn't have cat intestines to reproduce in. So here is where it really gets out there. And this is a scientific paper. The parasite knows it needs to get to the cat. So it infects rats. And then it alters their behavior. Doesn't say how. It alters their behavior, making them more reckless and less scared of predators. The parasite hopes the cat, or a cat, will eat the rat, thereby getting into the cat's intestines to sexually reproduce. I'm not sure if it reproduces on its own or if it needs another one in there, because that would be kind of difficult. But I'm assuming it reproduces on its own. And I'm not making this up. This is an actual scientific study. So let's make it even crazier, because, I haven't gone crazy enough with cats today. Humans can get this parasite. If they are cleaning out the litter box, and this is what the article said, they handle the cat feces, they can get the parasite. Well, you know what? If you're playing with cat poop, you deserve whatever you get. There is no reason for you to be playing with cat poop. I should never have to tell anybody, don't play with cat poop. That's just unbelievable. I'm assuming they get it from an open wound, but how the hell would I know how they get it? Because these scientists are studying people that play with cat poop and worm things that make rats go kamikaze. So I don't know exactly, and they didn't specify exactly how the human contracts the worm that wants to get into the cat. They didn't say. And then why would the worm want to get into the human? Because the human won't let it reproduce because it doesn't have the magical whatever in its intestines. And a cat's not going to eat a human, theoretically. So I'm not sure why the thing would want to get in a human anyway, but it does. So the scientists who study the parasite worm, who study it in the cat, and who study it in the rat, and who say you can get it if you play with poop, don't play with cat poop. Please, just warning you in advance. I need to state that apparently. Do not play with cat poop. There is evidence, the scientists say, that humans that get infected with the parasite have greater rates of neuroticism, so they get neurotic, and schizophrenia, which I never realized was caused by a parasite, but whatever, and slower reflex times. So the slower reflexes mean that these people get into more accidents. And they also say they have a higher rate of suicide. Now, seriously, how many people have this thing in them that they can truly make these statements? I mean, how many people go around playing with cat poop that get this worm in them, and then they can make these statements that they have a higher rate of suicide and they're slower with their reflexes? What, 10? And you're going to base it on that? Where this all came from is beyond me, but this is what they published. And there's actually, the word is like pharmacologica or something along those lines. It was a foreign name of the original article publication. Anyway, so yeah, slower reflexes may get them into more accidents, and they have a higher rate of suicide. Plus, they become more schizophrenic and neurotic with this worm from playing with poop. Well, you know what? If you play with poop, you probably deserve what you get. So, cats are harmful to the environment because they kill birds. They hate people. They're able to deviously figure out ways to get what they want, but they don't like you. They have some kind of Men in Black worm thing, only reproduces in their bodies and causes Rambo-style rats to take on cats and people to become paranoid wackadamia nuts. There you have it. Why am I not being asked to do these studies? I could definitely write a much better paper. It would be a lot more funny anyway. I swear about a quarter of all the shoppers at Walmart probably have this Gondii parasite in them, especially about 3 a.m., the way they act. All right, I I can't take it anymore. So this was your big article of the day. So beware of your cat, just FYI. I'm going to go start applying to be a researcher. Please don't forget to like this because it's my very first one. It's the first one. And I will be doing another one. I'm going to try to do, well, I am going to do at least a weekly basis. Could be a little bit more than that. Depends on how they're received. And also, please, either in the comments even, because I'm going to look at your comments and answer you. Give me some ideas. If there's things that you've heard of that were just whacked out there, that's what this is about. Whacked out there and made you wonder, or things that they're claiming and you're wondering if it's really true, let me know. And if I can, I will look into it and I will cover it. I hope you all have an amazing day, and thank you for listening.